Let's do it. Another edition of The Script, the podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. His real name is Cardale Jones. His nickname is Beanie Wells. My name is Dave Holmes. Make sure you hit us up at YouTube. Follow us at The Script OSU as well. Subscribe. Guys, we're coming off Jim Tressel's episode. The most viewed episode in the history of The Script. That says people like other people more than they like us.
You know what? Understandably so. I get the feeling what other people feel when they see you two. They liking other people better. You guys have been doing this with you guys. I mean, we about at least 8 or 9 shows deep.
Yeah.
And I'm understanding what the people are feeling.
That they're more pro Tressel than pro Beanie. I mean, what did you think of sitting down with your old coach? That's cool.
It was so freaking cool just to, have a candid conversation with him. And, it's funny, man, because he's always the exact same.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, his temperament, obviously in the locker room, it rises a little bit, but not too much off of, the conversations we were having. I mean, he's the exact same everywhere you go. Heck, they always called him the senator for a reason. I mean, he is that guy. No, but it was a pleasure just to, be here and sit with him and chop it up.
No, it was cool. So if you haven't checked that episode out, it's pretty timeless. Go back and check out the Jim Tressel episode from last week. But we've got a lot to talk about this week. And let's start with 34-0. The Buckeyes go up to Camp Randall and beat down the Badgers. Beanie, you were in attendance.
Yes.
Looking sharp, wearing some glasses, looking good. So what was your take on Camp Randall? It was a dreary day by Camp Randall standards.
Yeah. No doubt about it. But I love, Wisconsin. That was my first time going there and being in Madison. And the city is very nice. I mean, it's a very college-friendly town. A lot to do, a lot going on. Very beautiful and scenic. But nonetheless, when we get to the nitty-gritty, the football atmosphere, it was brutal.
Mm-hmm.
It was tough. There were chants of fire Luke Fickell. Fire Luke Fickell. And I couldn't believe
the first 3 and out.
Yes. Crazy.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe, they didn't even let the game get going before they started that. But, he has a tough uphill battle nonetheless up there. Ohio State looked phenomenal. We got a chance to see our guy, Julian Sayin, sling that ball around. And boy, is he efficient.
Yeah,
one of the best in the country.
We talked about that. Would they trust him to air it out? And they did in this game. It was funny because after the game, Ryan Day was asked about Julian Sayin and Carnell Tate and what's with the running game and what's with the special teams. The whole news conference happens. And at the very end, Ryan Day did something I've never seen him do in a post game. He just filibusters. He answers a question about the quarterback. And then he goes, hey, this was the last question since no one brought up the defense that just pitched another shutout. Is it cool if I talk about the defense? And then he talked about the defense. So Cardale, 5.9 points per game. We're more than half the season in. To give everyone an idea of how good that is, Oklahoma's second in the nation at 9.4. No one else in the country's under 11.
Yeah.
So the Buckeyes are almost twice as good as the entire country. Your thoughts?
I mean, defense win championships, and it's so hard to say and sit here as a quarterback, but it's true. I mean, I reflect on my time playing at Ohio State and how loose and comfortable I was, and not just because of the star power I had on offense, because I knew no matter what we did, on offense in that particular drive, I had all the faith and the confidence in the world that our defense was going to stop these guys no matter what situation, good, bad, or indifferent that we may put these guys in. So I think this offense this year is playing with that type of confidence outside of having great players all around them, especially at the quarterback position. But this defense is lights out. And then, every time you look up, it's like you're hearing about a new guy each and every week who's stepping up in the biggest moments. The kid, Isaiah West, gets in, on the offensive side of things. So this team is so loaded. And it goes back to my comments from the beginning of the season saying, they don't rebuild, they just reload.
Yeah. Hey, I got a chance to be on the sideline the entire game, right?
Humble brag. Humble brag.
I'm standing next to Maurice Lorette. We're chopping it up all game, just, what we're seeing and all of that. And I get a chance to be by some of these defensive linemen. Dude, Caden McDonald, Kenyatta Jackson,
yes.
Caden. These dudes are units, like put together. Like we use the term thick in other areas when we're talking about, other things. These dudes are like thick, built individuals. It's crazy standing next to them. And then, my favorite player in the country, not just at Ohio State, is Arthur Reese. He's an alien. He is a freaking alien. How big he is. I thought Sonny Styles was like the biggest guy I could see at the linebacker position. You see him next to Arvell Reese, and it's crazy. And then watching these guys go out and play, how fast they get off the ball, how the impact of them tackling somebody, you feel it just watching it. It was insane, man, watching this up close and personal.
Yeah. 7-0 now. All right, they're winning these games by an average of 30.6 points per game. So the ceiling is way up here. Now let's talk about some of the things they need to improve. After the game, I asked Ryan Day in the postgame newser, I said, you keep saying that you're adamant. You need to keep improving. Where do you see the room for improvement? He didn't even hesitate. He said the running game. I mean, instantly, 28 carries for 98 yards. That's 3.5 a carry. And if not for Mr. West, that you mentioned, Cardale, it would have been way worse than that because Bo Jackson, I believe, was 10 for 26. So, Beanie, diagnose this thing. What's going on?
So right now, we're watching, the running game struggle. And, I think Ohio State is playing a bunch of these running backs because they're still trying to figure out who's the guy. And thank God we have the luxury of being able to do that at this point in the season because of the talent on the outside and that we have at the quarterback position. But nonetheless, we have to be better running the football. I don't know. At times, it seems like we're starting to get into a groove and then, a play is called to where we're getting out of sync with the play call a little bit. And then you can see the offensive line maybe not understand where they're going. I tell you what, when they're up close and personal, seeing it live, you can see things a little bit differently. And I was able to see that. The offensive line has to be better getting a push, and they have to be better with their fits, their run fits and where they're going. There's times where we're seeing defensive linemen slant and the offensive line not being able to, take the right steps and get there. And Cardale, as you know, as a quarterback, when you're watching your offensive line take the wrong steps, the wrong track to a slanting defender, that throws everything out of whack. And that's what I was seeing in that game.
Yeah, we saw, an offensive lineman down in Miami pretty much cost the game with an interception for Louisville this past week because he stepped down where he should have kicked out. But that's in the past game. But I think when you talk about in the running game, Ohio State still break it in. 5 guys that haven't played a lot of football with each other. So when you're talking about the running game being efficient, those guys are like synchronized swimmers, right? All moving the same accord, understanding if this happens, they doing this, working to double teams. If this happen, win and get off. I think they're still trying to figure out that chemistry with those guys because you will see it on any given play that could have been, a 10-yard gain that was probably a 3-yard gain. It was just that one guy maybe got off a little bit too slow or maybe, didn't see it as quick as he should see it. Little things like that. And the great part about that, it's not a talent issue, right? It's continue to get those reps and continue to ingrain. And I guarantee you, they're on a bye week this week. That's going to be a point of emphasis for these guys because we all know when you get down to the nitty gritty, when you get down to the bulk of college football, you got to be able to run a ball.
And I'm not just going to put it on the offensive line because there were times, and as a running back, I hope you guys are listening to this podcast, and I'm talking to the running back room. There were times I saw our backs not have that burst that, when you see a hole, I'm speeding to get through that thing. I saw them going at the same pace as when they got the football. Right. And that's not indicative of what I want to see. And I'm sure Coach Lachlan wants to see out of his running backs. You want to see these guys explode through a hole. When it's blocked for 2, my running back coach would always say, when it's blocked for 2, I got to expect you to give me 4. And there were times where it was blocked for 2 and they're only getting 2. I don't like that. And I thought it was indicative of them lacking the burst when they're seeing it initially, kind of hesitating a little bit too much and patting their feet a little bit too much, something we got to be better at.
Let's talk about Luke Fickell here. So he loses back-to-back games to Iowa and Ohio State at home by a combined 71-0. All right. This is the first time Wisconsin's been shut out back-to-back games since 1977. It's not good. We mentioned the fire Fickell chance on the first 3 and out. I think that's too much, but I also understand why this program is upset here, Cardale. So where do you come down on Luke Fickell? Is it too late to fix this? Or do you feel like this is the end for Fick at some point this year?
You know what? My, coach that was on the high C, this weekend, we talked about up at CBS was Coach Fickell because I thought that the loss to Iowa last week and the way they lost, I don't know last time Iowa scored 37 points.
Right.
And pitched a shutout at home, already losing at home versus Maryland. And then I was like, this is the perfect storm for that seat to get a little hotter. You got the one of the hottest teams all of college football coming into your home. And I doubt you score more than 10 points. So what Ohio State did to him, that seat is getting a little hot for this staff. It's so unfortunate because you know how much we love Fickell here, but we got to, call a spade at this point. I can see them making a change before the season is over, especially when you look around the country where, coaches got fired down in Florida after winning the game.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about Billy Napier later, but to his point, okay, so Beanie, you were up in Madison. Did you talk to anyone? Because I was walking around campus Friday night, looking for what free meal I was going to expense on the house. But some people were getting mad about Fickell, and they said, "Where are you from?" And I said, "Columbus." I said, "He's our guy. He's a Buckeye." And this guy goes, "Take him back." They were so angry about Fickell, and we love Luke. He did so well at Cincinnati. He did well at Ohio State, but I do get the frustration from their standpoint.
No doubt about it. I got a chance to talk to, I had Monty Ball on the show and I had Ron Dane on the show.
Great running back.
And I got a chance to talk to those guys that know the inner workings of the Wisconsin athletic program. And their thought process was to give Luke a little more time. They did initially come out and say he lost the starting quarterback the last 3 years.
Yeah.
And that's a huge deal, especially when you're trying to go a different direction in the offensive end. What they did indeed say that bothered them, though, was them lacking in the run game because they know how historic and how good that has been for that Wisconsin program. So they want to give them another year at least to stabilize. And, they're of the mindset of, like, who wants to keep starting over?
Yeah.
I mean, nobody in college football can afford to keep starting over and getting guys and acquiring talent and get this talent to all gel and buy in. Because once you hit the reset button, it's restarting on every single thing. You're restarting on recruiting. You're restarting on guys that are going to be hitting the transfer portal. And then you got to restart an entire coaching staff, not just the head coach. We're talking about completely overall an assistant. So that takes a little bit of time. And you're talking about another 2 to 3 years of a rebuilding process. They don't want that.
Yeah, and I'm not a contract attorney by any stretch of the imagination, but I believe Fickell's contract is like 80% of the remaining value is the buyout, around $25 million. That's an expensive check to write unless you're real sure where you're headed after that. One good thing about the Buckeyes in this game, we haven't mentioned yet, Carnell Tate, my goodness, 6 catches, 111 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And guys, I was trying to think, how do I compare Carnell Tate to something else? This reminds me so much of the Minnesota Vikings of the late 90s, where everyone knew Randy Moss was the guy, and he's the freak. But the purists could look at it and say, you know what? Maybe that Chris Carter is the best, air quotes, receiver on this team, even though the other guy is the freak. So your thoughts on where this shapes up between Carnell against Jeremiah?
You know what? This is interesting. I think both of them do a lot of things really well. I do think Carnell Tate is the best route runner in the country. I said that a few weeks ago on this show. I mean, pick your poison. Yeah, pick your poison. I saw that JJ came out and said, a little bit of frustration about, drawing so much attention and being the number one priority for 99% of the teams that Ohio State going to continue to face because he is a game changer and a game wrecker. And I said this last year before this show was even a thing, that even without looking at the stat line and seeing he had, 1 or 2 catches or whatever the case may be, his impact is still felt because he can get your second or third best cover guy on another number 1 receiver in Carnell Tate, right? So he's gaining so much attention. He's allowing Carnell Tate not just to shine, but to take advantage of the opportunities he's been presented with. And then you saw that last year exactly with Emeka Buka as well. That's the type of player he is. That's the type of attention he's going to demand week in and week out. And he's still performing at a high level as far as Jeremiah Smith. But Carnell Tate, pick your poison with these two guys. It's, unfortunately for defenses, you can't double team them both.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, Beanie. I saw you doing something with your CBS gig, and I wanted to do the same exercise here. Top 5 wide receivers of all time at Ohio State, because I just mentioned Chris Carter. We talked about JJ. Who would be your top 5 all time? Why? And by the way, Cardale is going to be way too new school. You're the only guy who's almost my age.
Right.
You're not quite my age. So let's try to throw some old school.
So in this situation, I gave my top 5 the other day. I'm going to give it again. But my last pick, I split between the two, and I completely forgot one of the all-time greats on this list. So it's going to shake up a little bit.
Okay.
But out the gate, Chris Carter.
There we go.
Obviously, we all know and love Chris Carter. Terry Glenn, dominant. I got to throw Ted in there because I don't believe there's a guy in Ohio State history that consistently took the top off of defenses and was a scary anytime he touched the ball at the receiver position. Ted Ginn Jr. And then for that last one, Mount Rushmore is 4. So it's always hard.
Oh, so wait. I was asking for top 5.
Top 5. Oh, no. So I'm great then. I'm great. So
we've got Stone and Chisel to add a 5th face on Mount Rushmore.
So we're good. So I had Joey Galloway and Santonio Holmes in there, but I completely forgot and missed David Boston. So if I'm going top 5, I'm going to rerun it again. Chris Carter, number 1. Terry Glenn, number 2. Ted Ginn, number 3. I got to throw David Boston, number 4. And then that 5th spot is a toss-up between Joey Galloway and Santonio Holmes to me.
Wow. All right, Cardale. I told him to go old, and this guy almost went leather helmet on me.
Exactly.
He's ignoring the fact that they've had like 7 first round. Go ahead, Cardale. Get something in here. What do you think?
This is tough because I try to, focus on what guys did at Ohio State and try not to see what they did at the next level.
Yes.
And then also the toughest part is the longevity at Ohio State, how long you've been doing it. Last year I had this conversation because about Jeremiah Smith. I'm like, respectfully, out of all the great receivers at Ohio State, I cannot put him in that conversation yet. But now he's in it. Sorry. Tegan Jr. would be number 1 for me. And I'm trying to think about the guys I actually seen play, not just going over the stat book. Jeremiah Smith is number 2. Marvin Harrison would be number 3. And like I said, this is strictly off the guys I've seen with my own 2 eyes. Yeah. Chris Olave is number 4. And this one is hard between Jackson Smith-Njigba and Garrett Wilson. That's number 5. And honestly, you can put those, Ted and Jeremiah is 1 and 2. But those 3 through 5, you can put them anywhere. But the funny thing about it, I guess I'm gonna give it to JSN because of what his teammates say about him all the time. Like, hey, he was the best guy in our room. So I'm going with Jackson Smith-Njigba.
So real quick, the thing is though, while I go the older guys more so than the new guys, they were doing it in an era to where it wasn't like an air raid passing attack on a consistent basis. Yeah. That's why I got to go old school first.
Respectfully. Yeah.
Imagine Terry Glenn, Chris Carter, and Ted Ginn in this style of offense. What that would have looked like.
It'd be ridiculous. Yeah. And I look at a guy like how they get Jeremiah Smith the ball in the run game at times in jet sweeps. Dude, they're doing that to Ted. I mean, Ted did it to Ted a few times in the freaking
Notre Dame,
the Fiesta Bowl. The Fiesta Bowl, the reverse field. I'm just like, geez. So I mean, that's such a tough conversation when you talk about top 5s at any sport at any position because there's so many guys who is more than deserving to make the list. But that's the 5 I'm sticking with.
So my 5, I go Chris Carter because he's the guy that started it all, no doubt. Terry Glenn, your first Blitnikoff winner, didn't have the longevity in his career. He only had kind of 1 season he was the guy, but my goodness, that year. And he caught 17 TDs, he's the guy. David Boston is on there. The image of him strutting into the end zone on the Rose Bowl, I mean, an all-timer. I go Marvin Harrison Jr. because I believe they're only 2-time All-American. Got to the stage in New York City at the Heisman. And then that 5th spot, I was struggling because if you look at the stats, like you're saying, it's a Mecca, it's a Olave, it's one of those guys for being the compilers. But it's JJ. It's got to be Jeremiah Smith. I'm just projecting a year and a half in, he's going to own all of these in another year and a half. So for me, it's Chris Carter, Terry Glenn, David Boston, Marvin Harrison Jr., JJ.
Wow. It's a heck of a list, man.
Not bad. Not a bad list.
Like what you just said, Carter, no matter how you slice it, I mean, Ohio State's list your top 5 can be incredible. It can go from any era. This is why I believe we're wide receiver used because we can go from any decade to where we've had the most legitimate wide receivers in the country from the 80s, 90s, 2000. We can't forget about Jeff Graham.
Yeah.
I mean, JG was a beast. So from the 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, Ohio State has it. And you can put that up against any other school in the country, in my opinion.
And what's nuts about it? So if I said Joey Galloway, Santonio Holmes, Ted Ginn Jr., Chris Olave, Jackson Smith-Njigba, that could have been my top 5. That's probably 6 through 10 on my list. That's a top 5, and those guys would be 6 through 10. It's ridiculous. Well, coming up next here on The Script, the podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes, one comment really stood out to me in the post-game news conference that Carnell Tate had to say. We'll talk about it coming up next. Breakfast might be the most important choice you make all day. That's because with Wendy's 2 for $3 breakfast, you can mix and match your very own favorite perfect pairing of our delicious morning favorite.
With this breakfast deal, the choice is all yours, not someone else's. Isn't that how breakfast should be? It's your breakfast after all, not Martha's. She can pick her own breakfast. This one is all on you.
No matter what you choose, from our sausage biscuit with that grilled breakfast sausage or the egg and cheese biscuit with freshly cracked grade A egg and melty American cheese on a fluffy buttermilk biscuit, a small size of perfectly seasoned potatoes, or a medium hot coffee to power you through the morning.
All you got to do is pick your favorite ideal morning pair. You really can't lose because you're the one calling the shots. The choice is all yours. Wake up to Wendy's 2 for $3 breakfast just the way you want.
Limited time only during breakfast hours. U.S. prices and participation may vary. No substitutions, not valid in the combo, single item at regular price.
Support for The Script comes from Google. Being a college football fan these days means you're part analyst, part GM, and part rules expert. The game is just so much more complex than it used to be. 1 minute, you're trying to decide X's and O's. The next minute, you're debating the transfer portal. This is what college football fandom is all about. And AI mode in Google search is perfect for it. It's built to handle all those nuanced, complicated questions that go beyond the simple stats.
You can ask Google AI to do a deep dive on strategies like break down how the spread offense compares to the pro-style offense based on philosophy and pace. Or then you can pivot to more off-the-field elements and ask, why are there more college football player transfers in recent years?
You can even get real-time analysis, like asking how have this year's college football rule changes impacted the season so far? AI mode pulls all that info together for you. So whether you're wondering about a complex scheme, a new rule, or why your favorite team's roster looks so different every year, you can just ask Google. Welcome back to The Script, a podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Hit us up on all socials at The Script OSU. Subscribe on Apple, Spotify, but I suggest the YouTube version. It's by far the most fun. We're all here in studio. The rare podcast where everyone's in the same room at the same time, so it's good stuff. All right. Our friends from Prime Sportsbook has the new rewards program. You got to sign up for it. Prime Rewards. Whether you win or lose, your bets become bonus bets, and you can make free picks. So we like to go through and make a parlay every week, do some picks, and guess what? Finally, the mighty has fallen. Beanie Wells lost his first game at the hands of the Miami Hurricanes. You thought that cost Carson Beck. No, it cost Beanie Wells more. How are you feeling? How are you
I'm
feeling?
feeling terrible, but I said,
How are you feeling human?
I'm feeling, that's what I'm feeling human. I had to tell you guys, I had to go out and make a mistake just to bring me back down to reality and let you guys know I'm one of you. I'm not the alien like Arvell Reese is. I'm one of you.
Yeah.
I definitely had a humanoid mistake right there and, jumping out, getting too high on the Miami Hurricanes and completely forgetting how good Louisville is. They're a great football team with a great coach. And hell, that ACC is wide open right now.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
All right. So now we have Beanie's humility. That's all I wanted. So now let's go through a few games. I want to get your vibes on stuff, and then we'll give our picks here in a second. Vandy -3, home against Missouri. I've got like the two biggest Vandy guys on planet Earth here. You guys have been talking Vandy way before it was cool to talk Vandy. So what is it about them that you guys saw that no one else did for the first 2 months of the year?
To me, it wasn't just Diego Pavia. We obviously know how good he is and what he meant to that program, him going there. But their defense has been so stout this year. Them stopping the run, one of the best teams when it comes to stopping the run. And they get pressure after the quarterback on a consistent basis. This, in my opinion, is going to be not just the matchup of the weekend, one of the matchups of the year, because both of these teams are damn good.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I can't wait to watch it.
Yeah, and both of them do the same thing really good, stopping the run and running the ball. I think Missouri is still number one team, maybe number two behind Army or Navy, Air Force. Behind Air Force as far as the rushing attack. But yes, Diego Pavia had a chance to cover him a lot when he was out in the Mountain West 2 years ago, and he jumped to Vandy. And I'm making an argument right now. He struck the Heisman pose last week. He deserves to be in New York. I think when you talk about the Heisman Trophy, and it's a little bit off topic, you talk about what that individual player means to that program. This program is not Vandy that we see in right now without Diego Pavia and getting guys to buy in. The guy got the NCAA to change a rule about eligibility. That's how much he's meaning to college football right now. So he deserves to be in New York if the season ended right now. But if he continues to go on this run, I fully expect him to be in New York. But it's going to be a great game because both of them are built very similar.
And I believe he's fourth in the Heisman odds. We're going to talk Heisman odds here in just a minute. Michigan, -14 at Michigan State. For so many years, this was one of the most exciting games in the Big Ten. This week, it's just a game. But what do you guys think about Michigan at Michigan State? -14, big line on the road.
I think that's a big line. I like what Michigan's been able to do, but Justice Hayes is out. I don't know if he's going to be out in this game. I know he was out last week, injured. And I know he's a big part of what they do on the offensive end. And this is a rivalry game. Rivalry games, you always throw out schedules. You always throw out what you do well, and you got to go line it up and play it. And Michigan State, while they're not the world beaters we saw them be a couple of years ago, they are a competitive football team. They are getting back in the fold. So I think that's a little bit too much. If I'm a betting man, I'm going to go with Michigan State in the points.
That's interesting because I think Jordan Marshall, what he just did last week versus Washington, you guys remember when we did our over-under on Michigan win total, I had Washington going to Ann Arbor and beating these guys. So Michigan is already +2 on the 2 games. I thought they was going to drop Nebraska and Washington. And Jordan Marshall went for over 100 yards. And so with Hayes back or not, I think they can just continue to have a good run game. And what I've seen from Bryce Underwood last week and last couple of weeks, his steady improvement of throwing the football downfield and just being a quarterback, getting them in the right situations. This is going to be interesting. I know it's a rivalry game, but I wouldn't be shocked to see Michigan run away with this one early.
Okay, well, let's talk about something Carnell Tate said after the game, after the win over Wisconsin. He was asked about Julian Sayin's Heisman chances, and Carnell Tate said, that's the Heisman winner right there. I mean, he basically said, that's your guy, Julian Sayin. The odds say otherwise, although Julian Sayin is +417 right now on Prime Sportsbook. So basically, he's 4-1. So let's start right there. Julian Sayin as a Heisman winner. Where do you guys come down?
He definitely should be in that discussion, especially when you look at, his completion percentage. What is it? Like 80 for the year. 80. And what is he at? 15, 16, 17 touchdowns. I mean, 3 interceptions. The guy's taking care of the football, and he's on the number 1 team in the country. Yeah. So I think that matters. I think he'll definitely be in that discussion at the end of the year.
And I think, Cardale, the thing that hurts him, and whether or not it should is up to you. The thing that hurts him is Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate.
That's what
this perception that he's game managing. That's I think what hurts him over someone like Fernando Mendoza, who's the favorite at 3-1 on Prime Sportsbook. Those guys are seen as like, we're holding the program up, and Julian just maintaining the excellence.
And I'm gonna compare it and have this conversation as well. I'm gonna compare it to Mac Jones with the Alabama team with Devontae Smith winning the Heisman because he was surrounded by so much talent. I mean, they had the Blitnikoff and Heisman in him. They had the Mackey. And they had the Dope Walker Award winner. So they had every individual offensive performance.
No wonder that game went the way it went.
Oh, exactly. And he was the O'Brien winner as well as the nation's top quarterback and offensive player. So I think that's the vibe you're getting from Julian Sayin right now. Then you look at down to Alabama, what Ty Simpson is doing and the way they've been playing. I think 4 straight weeks with 4 ranked wins. Mendoza is killing it right now, throwing the ball around the field with guys who don't have the name. Last name is Smith. And then you look out in Oregon as well, what Moore is doing. It's going to be an interesting conversation. I do think if the season was to end today, he's in New York for what he's been doing, but the numbers don't lie. You got a lot of good quarterbacks playing at an extremely high level right now. He's definitely one of them.
You mentioned Ty Simpson. He's second in the odds right now, +313. So basically 3-1. On Prime Sports. But Beanie, we're going to talk about what team scares you the most in the next block. So I don't want to go too deep into Bama because they might be on your list. But what do you think of the way Ty Simpson's playing?
I mean, he's playing lights out. I mean, the way that he's taking care of the football through his first interception, 2 weeks ago, that was versus a tough Missouri football team. Yeah. But I mean, he's incredible. I mean, and then when you just look at the way that he throws the ball, he throws one of the prettiest balls that I've seen in college football. And I said it a couple of weeks ago. It's something about quarterbacks who have dads as coaches at the college level. And Ty Simpson's dad is the head coach at, UT Martin.
Yeah, UT Martin.
I compare him to how Joe Burrow was. Joe Burrow's dad was a coach at OU. Those guys just understand football at a completely different level because they eaten, breathed, and slept football from the time they were 2 or 3 years old. So, I mean, those guys play football at a crazy rate.
Yeah, and then another guy who's young and doing it really well right now, CJ Carr. But everybody knows the Carr last name. He coming from a football background as well. Only guy I'm giving the pass that's not playing at those type of levels with a football, family is, 2 of them, Arch Manning, and then Nussmeier down at LSU is struggling right now. But nonetheless, those 3 guys that we just mentioned in the Heisman with, Mendoza, Julian, and, Ty Simpson, I think all 3 of those guys find their way in the conversations of being in New York in the year.
So, Cardale, as a quarterback, what are the things that you see in some of these guys that impress you? Like, because I bet I look at it way differently than you do. What are the little things as a QB that you analyze on this stuff?
Anticipation, playing on time is the biggest thing. And I think all 3 of those guys I just mentioned does a great job of that. When they release the ball, I mean, especially on the go balls or deep balls, the receivers are even with guys. And out of nowhere, it's a dime. Their anticipation is great. Their leadership is great. And I think the understanding of their offense, I go back to a few weeks ago with Julian Sayin, I think it was the Washington game when, he knew he was going to have a free hitter in his face and he drifted back and threw the underneath kind of reverse field tunnel screen kind of to JJ and he walked into the end zone. And there's so many examples of Ty Simpson and Mendoza doing similar things. Just the understanding of football at a high level and playing on time and anticipation. Those are things that really impress me about any quarterback. Cause I don't think none of these guys I can look at and say, God, oh my God, look, they got the strongest arm I've ever seen. But them playing on time and understanding ball really helps those. And, ironically, they all kind of leading the country and the completions as well, percentage.
Okay, time now for our picks this week on Prime Sportsbook. So last week, Beanie's historic run. I said it was more impressive than Joe DiMaggio's 56-game hitting streak. It has now come to an end at the hands of Miami. Cardale won his game last week. I lost.
Back on track.
I lost by 0.5 because Air Force only won by 3 and not 3.5. Now, I'm not going to say bad things about the troops, though it would get clicks. Maybe I just need to be more of an Army or Navy guy. I'm just saying, don't send the Air Force to do the Army or the Navy.
Have we won this year? Yeah, because we won our first one.
That was it.
I won week 1 because the parlay hit. I'll do the questions around here, Wells. All right, so Beanie, that gets back on track. What's your pick this week?
Yeah, this week I'm taking Bowling Green minus 7.5 over the Fighting Dave Holmes, Kent State.
Why?
I think Bowling Green rolls. Bowling Green's been playing some pretty good football this season, so I think they'll dominate this matchup.
This is what it's come down to. You guys want me to lose, my college to lose and me to lose. All right, what do you got, Cardale?
I got Ole Miss on the road at the Sooners. I'm taking the points, and off the top of my head, I can't think of it right now. I think
plus
it's 5. Okay, yeah,
you get 5.
Yeah. And I don't just see Ole Miss was my dark horse for a national championship this year. Maybe playing really well. I know they just dropped one in Athens, but I don't see them dropping 2 in a row, especially in conference, especially with a 80% John Mateer with Ole Miss is one of the best pass defenses in all of college football.
Is this a Cardale if you're feeling spicy sprinkle on the money?
It's spicy. Put some on the money line, but I'm taking the points.
Yeah. No, 5's a lot of points. 5's a lot of points. Okay, I'm going to go to the MAC as well. I'm not going to ride my Kent State Golden Flashes. God knows that's not going to get you any money. I'm going to go ahead and take Miami -2 at home against Western Michigan. I think we've seen Miami play at their potential at times. Western Michigan's just a middle-of-the-road MAC team. If I get a home team under a field goal, I'm going to take them at home by 2. All right. If you think you have a gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 21 and over to play on Prime Sportsbook. Odds subject to change. Coming up next, we're going to talk about a team that says they need to overhaul the entire program. And I would argue they need to overhaul the entire state. We'll explain next on The Script.
For Buckeyes and businesses, Branded Bills has you covered. Whether you're showing your scarlet and gray pride or you're building a brand of your own, nothing tops a custom hat.
Branded Bills is a proud sponsor of Ohio State athletics with licensed Buckeye headgear that looks just as good in the horseshoe as it does when you're walking around Columbus. And beyond game day, they specialize in custom headwear that helps businesses, teams, and communities stand out with premium fit, finish, and style.
So whether you are a diehard Buckeye, an entrepreneur, or just someone who want to rep their story, check out Branded Bills. Explore their official licensed Ohio State collection or design your own custom hat built just for you. Branded Bills for Buckeyes and businesses, licensed pride, custom style.
Welcome back to The Script, a podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. If you haven't subscribed on YouTube, what on earth are you doing? Click that button right now. Hit us up also on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your pods, or follow us on social at The Script OSU. Guys, it is time now for our Buckeye Basement Solution, where we analyze something in the world of college football and try to fix it, much like Buckeye Basement Solutions can do for your own home. Let's go to Florida State. Okay. Mike Norvell, they say, is safe as the head coach, at least for now. But their AD, Michael Alford, says at the end of the year, they're going to do a comprehensive review of the football program. If I were Mike Norvell, I would be afraid that my name might come up during a comprehensive review of a football program. They have 4 straight losses. They have 9 straight ACC losses. How do we fix the Florida State Seminoles? And can Mike Norvell possibly survive a, quote, comprehensive review of the football program?
It's so crazy that, they went out this year and beat the number 1 team in the country. Not number 1 team in the country, a top team in the country in Alabama, who Alabama right now looks like they could be a number 1 team in the country. And they dominated them. And then they just fell off the cliff of the earth. I don't know what you attribute that to other than coaching.
Wait, is Beanie a flat earther? Is that what we just learned? He fell off the cliff of the earth?
I think
this pod, you know what? Conspiracy pods are hot. If you guys want to talk moon landing, let's talk.
Or we can get that going. No, but nonetheless, how do you do that? You don't attribute that to talent because you've seen in big games this team have the ability to go and look like a dominant football team in stretches. I think that only comes down to talent and preparation or lack thereof. And I was talking to Danny Carnell and Brian McFadden over the weekend, who I did the show with, and they both thought that the only reason why Mike Norvell is going to be safe is because his buyout is $60+ million. And they don't believe that they have that money to spend right now at Florida State while trying to recoup and recruit talent and go out and acquire more talent. And that's one of the harder things in college football right now. You got these large buyouts for coaches, but you also try to, revitalize an athletic program and stay steady. So,
well, and the problem is you spend 60 to make him go away, and then you spend 40 to 60 to bring the next guy in.
Exactly.
You're north of 100.
It's over $100 million to replace the staff in a short period of time. It's not happening.
Right.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I do not. Man, Florida State haven't been the same since they got smoked by Georgia in that bowl game 2 years ago where they won the ACC, and the College Football Playoff Committee still left them out. And you can say rightfully so all you want. I know they had a lot of guys sit out in that bowl game because they feel like they got screwed, but these guys haven't won a conference game in over a year and a half.
Yeah.
There's no excuses for that at all. And, I think that comprehensive review of the football program is going to be a do or die type of conversation for Norvell and his staff for next year to come, but they can't afford to make a change right now or at the end of the season.
I have my theory. All right. Do you guys remember the last thing that happened before this 4-game losing streak? Do you remember what Florida State's last win was? 66-10 over Kent State. We broke the Seminoles. Kent State broke the Seminoles. They were so beaten up physically after my Golden Flashes got done with them. That's what it was. Okay, but the bigger problem is we're talking about Buckeye Basement Solution, how to diagnose this problem. The whole state of Florida is in disarray right now because you have Billy Napier win a football game and then get fired on Monday. Mm-hmm. All right, and so clearly it was over the body of work. It wasn't about the game over the weekend, although they didn't look great even in that narrow victory. So what's going on here, guys? Because Beanie, again, I'll turn to you as the almost my age guy. In the 1990s, you had Bobby Bowden, you had Dennis Erickson in Miami, you had Steve Spurrier at Florida. It was the state, and there was nothing close to it. California wasn't close to it. Ohio wasn't close to it. Texas wasn't close to it. This was the premier state in college football. And what has happened to the Sunshine State?
Dave, you ever seen the movie Blue Chips?
Yeah, Nick Nolte.
Seen the movie Blue Chips, right? Jack and Penny and all. You know what they were doing with those guys, right? Dropping off bags and tractors. And at that point in time, they were the only ones doing it. And, you go back and you look at the state of Florida over the years, there's been a lot of stories that come out about the U and how the players were getting all types of dollars under the table.
No, they didn't get the death penalty.
Right.
Close to it.
Exactly. But so many of those schools down in Florida, now it's an even playing field. Now NIL is above board and everybody can go out and pay guys to come to the universities. And now it was just not like, oh, well, I'll take this $20,000 to go to South Florida or to be in Tallahassee opposed to going up north to Ohio just because of the good weather. No, I can go up north, get paid, and still play great football and win a championship. And right now, you're just left in the dust right now if you're in the Florida and the Southern schools because the playing field is even and nobody's saying, you know what, this history of this, historic Florida State program with Bobby Bowden, it doesn't mean anything anymore because it's a what have you done for me lately world.
Yeah, and I think it's some of that, but I think the biggest thing is you look at the recruiting dynamic that, everybody have to face. It's no more Cardale Joneses and Beanie Wells growing up who dream school was Ohio State. That's right in our backyard. So these Florida kids and those kids in that area. And this is one thing I said about that pocket right there with LSU right there, Auburn, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi State, Ole Miss. You can put Florida in there. You can put Florida State in there. Miami's a little further, but that pocket, right? You probably can get to all those schools within an 8-hour kind of circumference, maybe a little bit more. So those kids historically have grown up loving one of those schools and being exposed more to that school than not. And it goes back to our conversation we had weeks ago is like through the recruiting process, the TV deals wasn't as big. I knew nothing about USC. I knew nothing about as much as Texas. It was Saturdays, I was watching Ohio State or Cincinnati because that's what that was our local channels was covering. So you naturally fell in love with those schools. I don't think you have much of that now, especially with 707 going on and playing all around the country. So these kids are exposed to so many different things where they don't feel like their allegiance is the hometown school where so many guys our age grew up loving their school, play right in their backyards. I mean, that's the testament to being able to go down to Florida and pick out a Jeremiah Smith. But, you look at Carnell Tate's a Chicago kid, but he played 7-on-7 ball in Florida with Jeremiah and these guys and stuff like that. So they've been exposed to so many different things. I think that's what's hurting recruiting in certain parts of the area in the country, where they're not just, it's not a cakewalk to know you're going to get all the top talent in that area. Right. If I'm a Florida or if I'm a Miami and stuff like that. So you're dealing with that as well.
It's crazy. Like I think of 92, 93-ish. Beanie, I don't know if you remember these games. Like when Bowden and Lou Holtz would face each other, like number 1 versus number 2, Notre Dame, Florida State. It's so crazy. And it's why we at Ohio State always need to check ourselves just on this. It can get worse. The world of college football is littered with tombstones of the once blue blood. I mean, and you look around at Florida State, and I understand Notre Dame is still at a very high level, but there were some of these schools, Miami, Florida State, they were unbeatable or untouchable.
Nebraska was one of those.
Nebraska, Tommy Frazier in 95. My goodness, did they have them humming. You just never know. So Ohio State clearly at the top right now as far as prestige and number 1 team in the country. I want to ask you guys this. We'll get you out on this question today. The biggest threat to Ohio State right now, because if you said to me, Dave, who do you think wins the national title, Ohio State or the field? I will always take the field in every scenario. It doesn't matter how good you are. I always think the odds are something bad happens on the way to the top. But if you said, who do you think is going to win it all? You have one team. It's Ohio State, and it's not close. Mm-hmm. I take Ohio State as the most likely, but hopefully you get my point here. I would still take the field. So who's your guy out there? If it's not Ohio State, is it Bama? Is it Indiana? Is it Texas A&M? Who's the team that scares you most?
The team that scares me the most, it's Alabama and Indiana. Those are the 2 most scary teams, and because of what they do on the offensive end, and they have the quarterbacks. And when you go look at Alabama, they've been the most battle-tested team in the country. The run that they just went on is nothing short of amazing. It's crazy the teams that they just went out and beat. And then you look at Indiana and Kirk Cinetti and how he has his team playing. That's inspiring football. That's scary football, especially in big matchups.
Yeah, I think when you talk about immediate scare, I got to go with Indiana because most likely if things continue to go the way it's going to go, they're going to face each other in a Big Ten championship game. But you get into playoffs, depending on seeding and how that game go, you got to go with one of the teams from the SEC. And I'm going to say either Alabama or Ole Miss. The way Ole Miss is built, I know they just lost to freaking Georgia. But Ole Miss can run the ball. They can throw it. They got a really good quarterback and Trinidad Chambliss who does a great job of extending plays and getting things done on the ground. And they are one of the best pass defenses in the country. Something we do really well. I'm not saying, they match up is better, but something they pride themselves on of stopping the passing game. Something like we pride ourselves on of being able to throw the ball and not looking as great running the ball right now. That matchup can cause some issues on both sides of the ball for both teams. That'd be a matchup I'd love to see as well. And then we all know about Lane Kiffin and his offensive mastermind. I would love to see that chess match between Lane Kiffin and Matt Patricia.
And something you just said is so important where you said, I know they just lost to Georgia, but if we learned one thing last year, Ohio State losing to Oregon and Michigan, you have to understand that it's not what it used to be.
Right.
I mean, you can go 10-2, 11-1 and be the best team. Mm-hmm. It's a different world, Beanie, where you lose a game to Georgia. That doesn't mean Ole Miss is out of it by a long shot.
Right. And I love that it's that way now. Yeah. I love that we're getting a chance to see a true champion because you can be battle tested. You can have that one day to where you have that blemish. Everybody wakes up and not on the same page and you lose a football game, but then you go out and run the table like we saw Ohio State do, have a storybook season last year and do it.
And neither one of you said Texas A&M. So you consider them to be a 7-0 mirage a little bit?
No, I think Texas A&M is a good team and stuff, but I think those are 2 teams and knowing how the schedule can potentially match up.
Yeah.
Kind of looking for, clearly Indiana is, like I said, the most immediate threat if you guys both went out playing a Big Ten championship game, which will be basically a home game for Indiana.
The vibes would be off the chart at Lucas Oil. Actually, you know what? Let me get 30 seconds on each here. We're about out of time, but Joe Flacco debate. All right. Mike Tomlin said something this week. I want to talk just briefly NFL, where basically Mike Tomlin called the Browns out and said, what are you doing? Trading and helping out an opponent.
Rightfully so.
Okay. So this is funny because the garage sale mindset says if I'm not going to wear these shoes and I can get 10 cents for them, I might as well take 10 cents for them. But Beanie's saying you don't give the shoes if it's a guy you don't like who needs a pair of shoes.
Yeah, I'm definitely not giving the shoes to a guy I got to run track in the next day. If we got to track me, we got to run 100 and he don't get my shoes, no. You better be running in some socks. So I'm not giving you these shoes at all.
Well, I think, on the flip side, I guess it just shows you that the Browns really think of like, hey, we ain't too worried about you. Yeah, we play you guys a little later. We go kick your butt. But I think, what you said, Dave, you got to get something for it, right? Even though you got a bag of footballs, just like with the Newsome trade, right? You got to get something for it because you're going to lose them in free agency at the end of the season anyway. So I'm not too opposed to it. Flacco.
The way that he looked in the game versus Pittsburgh, that's what worries me. Like,
he got more weapons, man.
How can he look like this?
He threw for 340.
But man, it was like the precise throws that he had, the way that he controlled the pocket. It was like, golly.
I think you can throw some precise throws to Jamar Chase.
See,
maybe so.
I always forget how emotional I get, Beanie. So now I want to poke on Browns football one more. Does it concern you that Flacco leaves in his all world? Baker Mayfield leaves.
Yes,
and looks all world.
100%.
Why is everyone getting better when they leave?
I have no clue. And it's not. We can't just say it's just one coach to what it happens with.
Yeah,
this always tends to be the case.
Yeah.
So it's mind blowing.
Well, Cleveland historically hasn't invested as much they invest on defense on the offensive side of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's on the offensive side of the ball, it's the big guys up front and the great running back to really control the line of scrimmage. Because you look at the pedigree of Cleveland, and this is why I'm not too excited about the new stadium for these guys. You taking away from home field advantage. They're built to be a ground and pound and play great defense. The quarterback has kind of been the guy just to steer the ship for Cleveland historically. Now you're going to take that away. But here's so when a new stadium gets into town and, playing in an indoor facility, you want to invest in the quarterback because you're going to deal with the elements.
Yes. And this is my point with the indoor stadium. Have you ever seen a Browns team where we said, man, if we could just get him indoors on that fast track, if we could get Trent Dilfer or Jake Delhomme or Jeff Garcia, or if we could just get him on that fast track.
You're naming too many names now.
Anyway, we're going to find out. We're going to go back to Buckeye football mainly next weekend. Hey guys, next week it's the bye week. Enjoy it, but we're coming back next week as we get ready for Penn State on another edition of The Script, a podcast on the Ohio State Buckeye.